Hello, my name is Tony. I'm going to be honest, I never thought Ashanti was a good film. In fact, to be a little more brutally frank, I thought it was shallow, mindless, misguided, misdirected, poorly scripted, badly acted crap. I only ever watched it once, and that was right at the tail end of the 70s, and yes, I paid for a ticket. But in all the time since then, never once considered watching it again. Never once entertained giving it a second chance, a reappraisal. The thought never entered my head. Until two things happened recently. First, in responding to a comment about Michael Caine and his strategy of accepting film projects based on the location, Ashanti suddenly rose in my consciousness like some random unwanted morbid thought. You know the sort of thing. What if I jump off this bridge into the River Usk? What if I step in front of that truck full of stinking bleating sheep and see how it goes? What if I stab my neighbour with the garden shears I just happen to be holding? You know. You do know, right? Okay, maybe you don't. Let's move on. Second thing then, and the one that was the real catalyst for this review. I watched a new movie. Now I don't watch many of those, but I have these free cinema tickets for View Multiplex provided by Lloyd's Bank, so I do go to the movies every now and then. I went to see No Time to Die last year because I've seen every James Bond movie on the big screen at some point and wanted to keep up the tradition, which means this time I got to see James Bond die forever in the end. So that's me and the franchise done. Far as I'm concerned, James Bond is now officially over. Fucking wonderful. You finally did it. Thanks, Eon. Then, earlier this year, my son wanted to see the Batman, so I tagged along with my free tickets. What was that like? Like they decided to remake Seven as an excruciatingly overlong, serotonin-blocking superhero movie dipped in a barrel of boiling tar and pigeon feathers. Not exactly a glittering carnival of life-affirming good cheer, but still not as suicidally depressing as murdering the greatest British screen action hero ever conceived of just for shits and giggles, or just so he can be resurrected in the future as a she, a dwarf, Idris Elba, an asexual, transsexual, lesbian, feminist, poet, quadriplegic with alopecia, or whatever the fuck woke propaganda nightmare is on their minds. But worst of all, I went to see a major new release called Moonfall. Pilgrims, I have to tell you, I cannot find the means to express just how awful this film is. I am truly, sincerely speechless. It is beyond my capabilities to adequately convey. I can't do it. I cannot describe, with use of either spoken language or the written word, the sheer, absolute, mindless, wasteful, vacuum-packed, black hole, life-draining magnitude of the terminal dreadfulness of this abomination called Moonfall. It was so unimaginably bad, so unbelievably dire, it left me weak, diminished to the point I couldn't even walk out before the end. I had to keep watching to convince myself that this atrocity exposing itself before me and rubbing its balls in my face was real and that I was actually there watching it. I thought that I'd likely passed into some parallel universe where no one knew how to make a film and this was what you got instead. Or that I'd died and gone to hell. I was disturbed, frightened, afraid that when it ended it would just loop back to the beginning again and I'd be trapped there for all eternity, frozen, tormented by this never-ending travesty. I have never felt such relief as when the house lights went up and I made it out of the multiplex into the sweet petroleum-drenched Merthyr Tydfil air. I almost fell to my knees and kissed the ground, until I remembered where I was and that the average paving slab was likely host to toxic substances more lethal than industrial-strength Novichok. It will be a long time before I venture out to a movie theatre again. I'm the wrong age for this sort of trauma in my life, believe me. Ashanti, then, I reasoned, in comparison with Moonfall, maybe isn't all that bad, and perhaps I should take another look. Was my reasoning correct? Well, let's find out. Ashanti, the title refers to the native peoples of southern Ghana in West Africa, is supposedly an action-adventure film that uses the modern sex slave trade as its basis for the narrative. Developing countries, impoverished or war-torn, are the traditional breeding grounds for such activities, ripe for exploitation as life can be cheap and people go missing all the time and very often no one notices or cares. But David Linderby, played by Michael Caine, both notices and cares. He's a doctor working for the World Health Organization vacation with his wife and Ansa, Beverly Johnson. They're swanning around West Africa delivering an inoculation program to the natives. While David takes some time out to get some snaps of a bunch of locals jigging about in some tribal dance-a-thon, and Ansa pops off to skinny dip in the local lake. From there she is abducted by a gang of slave traders, led by the Arab sex trafficker Suleiman Peter Ustinov. She's shackled to a bunch of other unfortunates and bundled into the back of a truck. And so begins David's journey to retrieve his wife. The UN and the authorities are ineffectual, so he has to go it alone. Assisted in his quest by anti-slave agency honcho Walker Rex Harrison, mercenary helicopter pilot Sandel William Holden, and vengeful nomad Malik, the great Kabir Beatty, who has personal reasons for locating and exacting retribution upon Suleiman. How does it stack up? Caine is in shouty mode for a lot of the time and looks mightily pissed off for the most part. Angry, belligerent Michael Caine is not a bad thing necessarily, but he doesn't seem like he's feeling this film much, rather muscling his way through it, suppressing curses behind gritted teeth. And he's clearly punching above his weight having Beverly Johnson play his wife. Miss Johnson, an early accuser of Bill Cosby, who she alleges doped and sexually assaulted her, and I have no reason to doubt her, was the first African-American model to grace the front cover of Vogue. My guess is she's not here because of her acting talent, more so because she resembles a perfectly sculpted goddess of heartbreaking beauty descended from some Olympian stable of very select celestial beauties. She's something of a looker is what I'm trying to say. The supporting cast of Harrison, Holden and Kabir Beatty are complementary additions. Ustinov playing an Arab is not much different from his playing a Belgian, a Russian or a Greek. You won't buy it, but he is faintly amusing as a patriarchal despot bestowed with a casual and flippant amorality. Oh, and Omar Sharif breezes through as a Gulf prince who buys Caine's wife as a gift for his father. A sort of send-off for the old guy before his ticker packs in. It's little more than an extended cameo flyby. Always enjoy seeing Kabir Beatty in these sort of things. He looks so gloriously dark, brooding and murderous, and here he gets to knife and shoot numerous bad guys with abandon. Rex Harrison seems as if he's wandered off from strolling around a croquet lawn and just happened to end up on set. Bill Holden isn't around long before Ustinov puts a bullet in him and causes his helicopter to crash and burn. And talking of Ustinov, he goes for the full caricature treatment, yet makes his character's reprehensible behaviour seem like a harmless bit of fun. Not an easy thing to do, as he casually turns a boy slave over to one of his minions for a bit of buggery in the bushes, or dismisses the inhumanity of his trade with a callous disregard for human worth as anything other than a commodity. Beverly Johnson as an Ansa is a definite positive, retaining a breathtaking look of radiant beauty and feminine sexuality even when being dragged across the Sahara in chains. Her brief nude scenes are going to raise more than a smile for any heterosexual male viewer. Oh, am I being sexist again? That's a damn shame. The script by David Geller, who co-wrote mafia flick The Valachi Papers and the dodgy screen version of Vonnegut's Slaughterhouse 5, is a ropey article that George MacDonald Fraser was reportedly brought in to tidy up. Whatever Fraser contributed obviously didn't help much. I'm surprised though that no one capitalised on the name of Beverly Johnson's character and had Caine, when asked, "What do you want?" say, "I want my wife. I want an answer," to be met with the reply, "Well, we all want an answer." Good, eh? Oh well, maybe not. Might explain why my screenwriting career never took off then. Director Richard Fleischer, Compulsion, The Boston Strangler, 10 Rillington Place, must have had a thing for slave dramas, having directed the infamous Mandingo in 1975. He's not at his best, listless, pedestrian, and it feels like he's going through the motions just to get the film in the can, fulfill his contract and go home. Although some of the cinematography by Aldo Tonti demonstrates striking flashes of inspiration, and some of the location shots have a sweeping, epic look to them, it has the vibe of a made-for-TV venture on something of a bigger budget. The cheesy score by Michael Melvin, whose background was in composing for TV, movies and shows, succeeds in reinforcing this impression. Ashanti isn't great, struggles to achieve a just above mediocre status in fact, but compared to the bloated monstrosity of evil creative vacancy that is Moonfall, it is a shining beacon, a pinnacle of thoughtful and enthralling entertainment, a work that has at least some decent human talent at play. Mildly engaging characters written with half a chance you'll enjoy seeing them on the screen. Ashanti has that. Moonfall doesn't. Competent actors who approach their roles with a modicum of conviction and wit. Ashanti has that. Windfall doesn't. A director who knows how to direct a movie even if he's having something of an off day. Ashanti has that. Deadfall doesn't. Real world action and stunts. Ashanti has that. Pitfall doesn't. Locations that are captured on screen with professional care and a smattering of visual acumen, Ashanti has that. Downfall doesn't. Human beings who look like human beings rather than poorly animated plastic animation figures stapled to their cardboard backdrops, Ashanti has that. Pratfall doesn't. A budget that isn't an obscene mind-melting waste of financial resources, Ashanti has that. Landfill doesn't. I could go on and on about what Ashanti has and Moonfall doesn't, but I think I've made my point. Ashanti might be a slapdash live-action cartoon cliché that is aged badly, but it provides 100% more arbitrary entertainment value than that big fucking block of collateral damage dogshit tax write-off that is Moonfall. And is vastly less damaging to my sanity and mental health, which is great, and that's the bottom line. The value of today's cinema, for me anyway, seems to lie in triggering an ongoing re-evaluation of earlier films from the distant past I never rated much, and the realization how much more worthwhile and entertaining they now are. If I can get more value and meaning from a trashy piece of misfire like Ashanti than a $150 million budgeted lump of coal like Moonfall, then what does that say? I'm learning something. Are the makers of Moonfall. With a global box office take standing at just $43 million, they fucking well should be. Dankeschön, mein Kapitans, for your ever-appreciated time and attention. You know the deal. You can hit like, don't like, comment or subscribe if that is your earthly desire. Wonder what's up next? Oh, it's that, is it? Okay, pilgrims, brace yourselves.